Good morning, everyone, or maybe it's afternoon. Actually, it's 11, so it's still morning. Welcome to the Center for Education Reform School Choice Lunchtime, which is an early lunch today session. It's National School Choice Week, and I want to thank all of you for bringing your lunch and joining us to talk about the battle for equality in Pennsylvania. At the end of my brief remarks, I'll be taking your questions. You can submit them at any time during the webinar to lunchlessons@edreform.com. Again, that's lunchlessons@edreform.com. You can also ask questions on Center for Education Reform's Facebook page or Twitter page by just using the number sign and then choice lunch, one word. So I guess we'll go ahead and get started, and hopefully we'll have more people joining us throughout the course of this dialogue. So for those of you who may not know me, my name is Dawn Chavous. I am from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, born, bred, and raised, and I've been here my entire life. I love the state of Pennsylvania and specifically Philadelphia. I am the executive director of Students First Pennsylvania. We have been an organization, a nonprofit organization, since 2010. And our whole purpose in life, our passion in life, and the reason we were created was to ensure that all children throughout this state have access to a high quality education, regardless of zip code or income level. We want to make sure parents have as many options to them as possible, and we created the nonprofit to not only raise awareness as well as educating parents, but also to get meaningful, comprehensive legislation passed the state legislature that would provide high quality options for parents. So a little background about myself. I was a former chief of staff of Senator Anthony Hardy Williams. He's currently a state senator representing parts of Philadelphia County as well as Delaware County in Pennsylvania. I worked with him for close to 10 years, and before that I worked with his father, who was known as the creator of the independent political movement in Philadelphia. I directed all of Senator Williams' education initiatives while I was on staff with him. And in 2010, Senator Williams ran for governor with one of his major agenda items being school choice. And even though he was not successful in winning the party's nomination, he was successful in advancing an issue that is so near and dear to all of us, and that is quality educational options for parents. Um, and so, in addition to that, I started a nonprofit education free tutoring program called Green Tree Education with a friend of mine. I did it in the heart of one of the under-resourced areas of Philadelphia, Southwest Philly. And the purpose of that was really because we saw within a 1 to 2 mile radius 5 or 6 schools that were all considered low performing, and that community not really having any other options or resources. And so I decided with a friend of mine to start this free tutoring program focusing specifically on literacy. And what I found from interacting with over 400 parents and students was that a lot of students, even though they may have been in their right grade based upon age, they weren't in their right grade based upon their academic ability. And so we found a lot of 5th and 6th graders that were on 1st and 2nd grade reading levels. We also saw an issue with grandparents raising their grandchildren and not having all of the skills necessary to really support them outside of the classroom. And so we did that for a number of years, just providing the free literacy program. So today's topic is really talking about what we've been doing over the last going on 2 years now here in Pennsylvania, trying to get school choice legislation passed. In 2010, we did elect a Republican governor. The Senate is controlled by Republican leadership. The House is controlled by Republican leadership. And some people would think that's the perfect recipe to get school choice legislation passed. However, we've had many challenges over this last year trying to do just that. Both Senator Anthony Williams as well as Senator Jeff Picola have been leaders in this fight. Senator Jeff Picola is the chair of the Education Committee for the Senate, and Senator Williams serves on the committee as well as just being a huge leader in this reform effort. So over the course of the last 2 years, the legislation has changed many times. The bill has continued to get stronger. Compromises have been made to address issues raised by different caucuses and special interest groups and issues that have come up. We've been working hand in hand very closely with the governor's administration, and specifically with the governor, who has said on numerous occasions that he is 100% in support of school choice, and even said in the fall of last year that that was one of his major issues he wanted to see addressed. But for more reasons than what we probably have time to talk about in this 1 hour, we just have not been able to get it done. I specifically work with a lot of legislators on both sides of the aisle, but primarily in the Philadelphia and southeastern part of the state. We have organized a statewide coalition of grassroots organizations that have been in contact with their legislators, that have played an active role in their school communities, in their churches, in their neighborhoods, to just try and educate people, because unfortunately the opposition has been very effective in confusing people and sharing information that is just not accurate in regards to what we're trying to do. And so, it has been a challenge, but we got very close this last in the fall and winter of last year in getting legislation passed. Senate Bill 1, which some people may be familiar with, did pass out of the Senate and was over in the House. Unfortunately, that's where it died. And the reason for that is because when they put up the amendments for a vote, they had taken out vouchers. What we did when we put the legislation together was we made a package deal of school choice options. So not only would parents be able to have low-income parents and working-class family parents that that may be trapped by the zip code or where they live would have options through a voucher program. We also wanted to expand the EITC, Educational Improvement Tax Credit Program, which has received bipartisan support for the last 10 years, as well as the expanding charter legislation, which would allow for charters to expand without the challenges that they currently face. That bill, Senate Bill 1, did pass. As I said, the Senate was over in the House, and when it was brought up for a vote, they took the voucher component out of it. Leadership did, and when that happened, the vote died. And we believe that is because there is overwhelming support for vouchers in the House Assembly. However, when you're making significant changes to legislation at the last minute, it never goes well. So, the beginning of this year started with a whole lot of challenges, given that we have about 48 parochial schools that are subject to close at the end of this school year because of numerous reasons. We have a school district, Chester Upland School District, who's not able to pay their bills and, are having to deal with the fact that their schools may have to close if they can't receive the money from the state to continue to operate to the end of the school year. The Philadelphia School District, where I reside, is facing a $61 million deficit and is continuing to grow daily. So there's just a lot of issues going on right now in Pennsylvania as it relates to challenges within the current system. And based upon that, we just see that there is a huge need for this school choice legislation to pass so that parents can have as many options as possible in finding a high quality education for their children. And so we believe with the frustration that parents are going through right now, given all the challenges, whether you're at a parochial school, at a traditional public school, or still on a waiting list at a charter school, that there's a lot of momentum in place when we're using that to help us move forward our agenda and try and get legislation, meaningful, comprehensive legislation passed this spring. And so, with that, I guess I'll take a few minutes to start addressing some questions if there are any. Um, and this is my first time using live stream, so hopefully we'll get to everyone's questions. And I think they're just supposed to come right up on the screen. And I'm not, and I just hope that I have this. Oh, okay. So the first question comes from Violet in Pittsburgh, PA. She's a parent and really wants our state to bring vouchers, but she heard so much opposition to this effort. Mostly, it looks like the rest of the question didn't come out. So, Violet, let me first thank you for your question and thank you for joining us from Pittsburgh. I've been working with Randall Taylor, who's a former school board member, as well as Luther Sewell, who has a nonprofit organization out there, and Talk Magazine. They've been very active in this movement, and so hopefully you're connected to them in some way. So, in regards to the opposition, you are correct. There has been a lot of opposition, and everybody's not going to agree on ways to solve problems or address issues that our state faces as it relates to education. Um, so I wouldn't say that I'm against people sharing a different viewpoint. However, one of the challenges we faced, and the legislature has faced, is that the opposition has done a very effective job providing misinformation, providing incorrect information as it relates to the legislation that's trying to get passed. I sat with many legislators who show me the documentation that is communicated by the opposition, saying that these school choice legislation proposals would shut down the Philadelphia school district or school districts across the entire state. That it's only for the rich. That it's only for people that have means, that the voucher is an additional expense. Really, it's a reallocation of funds. The way the bill was written by Senator Williams and Senator Paccola was so that they could reallocate the state portion of funding that every child in the state of Pennsylvania that attends a public school receives, to use that for a parent to decide where they would like to send their children. So it's not an additional set of funding, it's a reallocation of funding for the voucher. For the EITC program, it's tax credit. And again, that has received bipartisan support. The voucher would be for not for people that already have means. It would be for those that are low income and working class families. And the way that they constructed the bill was so that it was on a sliding scale, meaning that if you made say $40,000, you may get a larger voucher than someone who makes $50,000, and that number will also depend on how many children you have in your family. So I appreciate your support. I'm glad that you're involved in this movement. And what I tell parents all the time is that legislators need to hear from you. They need to hear from directly from their constituents regarding the fact that they support the work that we're doing. So it would be very helpful if you reach out to your legislator and ask them to support the voucher bill, well, actually the school choice legislation that we're trying to get put in place. So I'm going to go to another question. How can parents like me get more involved to help change the dialogue in the press? That is a great question. So the first thing is go to studentsfirstpa.com. Okay, that's our website, and you can be connected to us. We send out weekly newsletters updating parents on what's going on with the legislation. Also, you can reach out to your legislator. If you don't know who your legislator is, we can help you find out who it is. Center for Education Reform can help you find out who your legislator is. It is so vitally important for parents to contact their legislators to tell them that they're in support of this of school choice. I will tell you one of um, the challenges we had last year was not getting enough parents involved in this. No matter how many times we would go to the PTA meetings, I mean, we went to community meetings, we went to community festivals, we went to basketball games, we knocked on doors, we did take it to the streets with another organization called Black Alliance for Educational Options, just going out into neighborhoods and to shopping centers, educating parents. But it's not just about what we do in terms of educating parents. It's really about what parents do in terms of reaching out to their legislators. So that is significantly important. So that is really what's key in this movement: getting parents more vocal in the process, getting them more involved. And one of the things I shared with a colleague of mine is in these last 20 days, a lot of the Catholic schools that are subject to close at the end of this school year, a lot of their school communities have been coming together for vigils, for rallies to try and keep their schools open. And I said, wow, it would have been great if we had that same energy last year when we actually, started with the legislation. And I think now they understand that even if they may not be low income, if they may not be living in a certain area that has low performing schools, school choice does really impact everybody. It's not just for those that don't have, the school choice legislation that Senator Williams and Senator Paccola have been working so diligently to get passed really address so many different demographics of families and communities and neighborhoods. And it's a statewide piece of it's a piece of legislation that impacts people statewide. And, I would just, try and encourage people and help folks to understand that school choice really is about impacting an entire neighborhood, and really everybody can benefit from the legislation being passed. So I'm going to go ahead and go to another question. Um, Carolyn in Louisville, Kentucky. Okay. What recommendations do you have for building grassroots coalitions in other states? That is a great question. Thank you so much for asking. I will tell you how we did it, which has been, we think, very effective. Because I tell people all the time, even though we were not able to get legislation passed thus far, we have been a voice, and it's been on the governor's agenda. It's been on the leadership in the House and the Senate's agenda for over a year. And you can't do that by being silent. You have to do that by organizing people on the ground and making sure they're in constant communication with their legislators. And we would like to have more. We always want to have more, because you have 30,000 kids on a wait list at a charter school. You have over 50,000 kids that are enrolled in EITC, that are enrolled in private schools through EITC funding. So, I mean, there's a huge coalition of people that want this legislation, that are in support of it. What's really important is to first reach out to your local community. I would reach out to parents that attend the low performing schools in your area. I would reach out to private schools, especially those that are in under-resourced communities. Um, I would reach out to your local clergy, whether it's uh, a Baptist church or a Muslim uh, hall or a synagogue. I would reach out to your clergy and ask them to get involved. And then I would just start scheduling meetings. I would go to where they are, have a meeting at their school, have a meeting at the local church, have a meeting at the local community center, and start working on organizing, the families. But what's most important is that they really have to understand what is at stake. They have to understand what is at stake if the legislation doesn't get passed, and they have to understand how the legislation will benefit them, what they can expect, which would hopefully be different from what they are currently experiencing. And then you have to motivate them to then uh, get involved, pick up the phone, write a letter, do an op-ed, um, blog about it, put it on Facebook, put it on Twitter, and then encourage some of the other parents in their local communities to get involved as well. Um, so, I mean, I definitely think that it's doable, but it's not easy. It is a lot of hard work, um, and you know, it's possible to really affect change, but you have to be willing to put in the time and energy, and you really have to seek out those people that would be that would be impacted by the legislation if it were to be passed. That's really what's key in terms of grassroots coalitions and organizing. And I will tell you something that was effective for what we did at Students First was we looked and found all of the other organizations across the entire state that were doing work like ours and brought them all together. Um, because for us it was like, the opposition is organized, all of them are working together. We as the people that are really trying to help children need to be organized as well. And so we were having weekly meetings, conference calls with a statewide coalition of grassroots organizations. So they would be constantly updated about what was happening with legislation, about what was going on, and what we needed them to do to mobilize not only their constituents and the members that belong to their organization, but also their surrounding community. So that was very effective. I'm going to go ahead on to another question from Gary in Michigan. Hi, Gary. The majority of students most helped by school choice and charters are poor minority students represented by urban Democrats in the legislature. Yet these are the legislators which provide the strongest resistance to additional charters. Based on support for the Democratic Party by organized labor, especially the teachers' unions, how do you suggest we cross this divide and get their support? Wow, you guys are really asking some great questions today. I'll tell you something. What you said is correct. The majority of students helped by school choice and charters are students that are represented by Democrats who a lot of times oppose the legislation. Um, Part of that is because a lot of legislators don't fully understand the concept of school choice. They understand charters now because charters has been around for so long, and they support EITC, but they don't understand vouchers. They don't understand how it works, and the unions that you're speaking of organized the teachers union and organizations represented by the local school districts and school boards really do an effective job of misrepresenting what vouchers do, how they work, and how the legislation would be structured. And I think sometimes they see what's happened in other states and suggest that it's a negative, suggest that they don't work, and say that it's just another way to give money to private schools um, and Christian or Catholic school education, which we all know is not true. Um, what we've done to sort of address that issue is speak directly with legislators that represent the students that you're referring to. I will tell you specifically because I am from Philadelphia, which is predominantly a Democratic city, represented by Democratic legislators. We actually had meetings in their local in their local districts with members and constituents of their district who were in support of this. So part of it was, taking the conversation to them, not just going to your state capital and having meetings there, having a dialogue and a community forum in their district where they may think nobody supports the issue. Once they see parents coming out, once they see how students are benefiting, once they really understand the legislation, they're more inclined to be neutral or supportive. Um, One of the other issues that comes up is like, how does this affect the local public school? Um, my position and our organization's position is, we shouldn't be funding failure. If the local public school has had a public school open for the last 10 or 15 years that unfortunately has not been producing high quality educational programs for its kids, if there's a 60% dropout at that local school, something is wrong. So something needs to change anyway, because we don't want to continue to have, a system of failure. So, providing additional options um, does not mean that you don't fund public education. Providing additional options means that you allow competition and you allow parents to really choose whether or not they want to keep their school, whether or not they want to keep their student in that local school, or whether or not they want to move them somewhere else. Our notion and our premise and our thought behind this is that parents and students should never feel trapped in violent and low performing academic institutions. And what we've done, is really educate these Democratic legislators and also explain to them, you know, the fact that this is the case. Take them to the local schools so that they can see for themselves how students are struggling in that type of environment. And the fact of the matter is, none of the legislators that, say that they are opposed to school choice or fixing these low performing schools would ever send their child to that low performing school. And so it's really important to speak to the Democratic one, also district. Versa. Okay, definitely. When and I'm not a legislator, so I don't want to say that I know exactly everything that legislators are thinking, but tax credit for 10 years. Educational models that exist. Two of them are already programs that are already up and running. Vouchers is the one that is not. When there were conversations about expanding or making modifications to the charter legislation to make it easier or less challenging for charters to expand and address many of the accountability issues dealing with charters, there was a decision to um, make it a package piece of legislation. And as we can see from what happened in the House this past winter, when they brought up just charters and EITC for a vote, it didn't get passed. In the Senate, when they had charters, EITC, and vouchers together as a package bill, it was passed. So, you know, in the minds of legislators, I think, because it's all dealing with the same issue, which is providing additional options for parents, which is having different educational models and programs available, allowing students and parents to get out of low performing and persistently violent schools. It's all connected, and I think the reason why they keep it combined is because it makes the legislation stronger, because you're not just dealing with issues separately. This is about a menu of options that we would like to have available to all families. Um, and so I think that's why, even though there are two different types of educational programs, it's all addressing the same issue. I think that's why they decided to combine all the legislation. I'm going to go to another question. Um, Richard in Bethesda, Maryland. Hi, Richard. Maryland has one school district per county, but Pennsylvania and many other states have very small independent school districts. How does having to deal with hundreds of very small districts affect your ability to get your message across? Wow, I just have to commend everyone that's asked the question. You guys are asking some great questions. That is a really great question, Richard. I'm glad that you raised it. We do. We had 501 school districts across the state of PA. Now we have 500. We were able to consolidate one. But, over this last year and a half, that's been an issue that was raised. Why do we have so many school districts? Do we need all of the school districts? You have a school district like Philadelphia that has about 140,000 kids in it, with a superintendent that makes $300,000 a year, and then you have a school district in Harrisburg with 6,000 or 8,000 kids in it, with a superintendent that makes close to the same amount, or did at one point. And that was one of the major issues that, because we have so many small school districts, is that really an effective way to use, public funds? Is there a reason why more of the districts cannot be combined, so that you don't have 5,000 here, 6,000 here, 2,000 here, and then you have a school district like Philadelphia with 140,000, which is one of the largest school districts in the state of PA. It definitely does, create some challenges. Not so much in just our ability to get our message across, but really, each one of those school districts has a school board, and so the opposition is represented in large part by school boards, by school districts who do not want to have the ability for more options for parents, because that means that more students might leave their local school district, which would impact their budget. Um, Having that local school district gives them the ability, that school board, that union, the ability to advocate their position, even though they may be, misrepresenting, what is actually happening. So the fact that there are so many different school districts does create a challenge at times. One of the ways that we've tried to address it is to have, to bring all the coalition, to bring that coalition together that I mentioned earlier, of the different organizations throughout the entire state that are located in different sections of the state that represent different, or that have their organizations housed in different school districts, and really set up shop, or get parents from those districts that are unhappy with their child's education, to really get them the ability to really educate them, and then have them be an advocate in that specific area. Um, I will tell you that, there was conversation about consolidating, but, I think because some of these school districts have been in existence for so long, they sort of become territorial over their specific neighborhood or their specific community, and they get concerned about allowing kids from one area to come to their area if they're not actually from that local neighborhood. Do I think it's right? No. Do I think it's an effective way to organize our public education system? No. But you're also dealing with personalities, you're dealing with different characteristics, different demographics, and it does play a major role in, the challenges that we face at any given time when we're trying to address this issue. But I will tell you, the most effective thing that's worked for us is really having people that represent different demographics and different uh, uh, areas from across the state come together and allow them to take their message, because what you say in Chester County is going to be different from what you say in Harrisburg. What you say in Pittsburgh is going to be different. It's going to be a different message from what you are going to say in Erie, because every different county, every community within the counties have different um, communities that deal with different situations. So it has been a challenge, but we've tried to address it the best way we can by having representation in each one of those areas to speak specifically to how they could benefit from the legislation that we're trying to get passed. So I hope that answers your question, and thank you for asking it today. Um, so there's okay. I'm just reading some of these other questions on here and other notes. I apologize if we have not been able to get to um, your specific question. Please feel free. You can always follow up with us at studentsfirstpa.com. You can also follow up with Center for Education Reform, and I will just tell you that organization does amazing work. Cara is amazing, Jeannie is amazing, and they deal with this on a national level. And they've been very helpful to us in Pennsylvania with the work that we've been doing over this last year and a half. And so I just have to commend them for the work that they're doing, and even putting these webinars together to have dialogue about how we can be learning from each other as it relates to school choice, and trying to provide high quality educational options for all of our children, not just in Pennsylvania but throughout this entire country. Um, it is the civil rights issue of our time, and it's an issue that requires an immediate attention, and we're going to be doing everything that we can before the end of this legislative cycle in June to really try and get this legislation passed. So with that, I'd like to conclude our session for today. I want to thank all of you for coming to an early lunch. I know it's not noon yet, but hopefully those of you that had your lunch with you, you started already, and I think I'm going to go and get something right after we're done. School choice is so important for our children's education and for real sustainable education reform in the United States. I hope you will join CER again tomorrow at the same time and place. Tomorrow's lunchtime session is about the suburban charter effort right here at noon. Have a great day, and I hope you tune in tomorrow. All lunchtime lesson sessions will be available later today at edreform.com. So if you'd like to send this information to somebody, you can just go on edreform.com, or if you'd like to see it again, you can go to that website to hear what we were talking about today. So again, thank you, and I hope everyone has a great day. Bye.